February 1982. I'm in my high school bathroom conducting panty check number 18. Nothing. Less than nothing. There's always nothing. The thing is, I wasn't always so acutely focused on my girl parts. In fact, a short while before I started high school, I had been a highly successful and highly functional tomboy. I'd been that way for most of my life. I wanted absolutely nothing to do with dresses. They got in the way of the soccer ball. I don't recall ever owning a doll. Not one. Not one. I'm the youngest of 3, with 2 older brothers. And according to my mother, if she asked me to do anything at any time, my response was, "Are the boys?" If they were doing it, I was in. If not, she was going to have a tough time. After my brothers were born, my mother wanted a girl so badly that during her 3rd pregnancy, she secretly named me Richard and convinced herself I was going to be a boy to stave off the inevitable disappointment. So you can imagine her utter joy when I emerged from her uterus with a vagina. That poor woman spent many, many years buying me tea sets and frilly dresses, and for some godforsaken reason, very colorful ponchos, while I mastered peeing standing up. As a kid, I was very agile, pretty fearless, and would take any unwanted position on the field in the sports teams that my brothers and their neighborhood friends assembled. I wasn't half bad either. In fact, I was really good. To this day, true story, I can bring most men to their knees at a game of mercy. And ping pong, I'm gonna fuck you up. I may have been one of the guys, so to speak, but I'd always been very interested in the boys in my class. And it turned out being a tomboy was not an impediment to my dating life in those early days. In fact, I reckon my dating value peaked at around 8 years old, which is when I had my very first boyfriend, Grant Cowie. Gorgeous boy. I would regularly relieve the beautiful Grant Cowie of his prized marbles during our games at recess. The boy was in awe of me. You see, I was quite the catch, with my long, straight, dark hair and my curious brown eyes, and lots to say for myself. But at around 12 years old, I noticed a shift in the boys and the girls at school and in me. The girls became more girly, and the boys seemed to like it. So I started to embrace my girliness a bit, or rather, I started to pretend I was more girl. I remember so clearly one day at recess playing marbles. I was brilliant. But instead of shooting the shot with a steely arm between strong anchored legs, I started tossing the marbles like a girl, all side saddle-like. Floppy wrist. Grant Cowie was super confused, as was my father's girlfriend's son, who burst out laughing when I arrived for lunch in a dress, right before we hit the trampoline like we usually did. These were confusing times, especially for me. By the time high school was in my sights, I was nearing 13 and was taking my femininity very seriously. The stakes were way too high to mess around. There was just one maybe two small problems. I was flat as a pancake, not even the hint of a developing breast. I was pretty small all round, and heading to high school, this would be the big leagues. So many boys and way more girls for them to choose from. Not to mention a buffet of boobs. 2 months before high school started, I found myself at McCulloch and Bothwell, a school uniform shop that serviced all the schools in their area. This was South Africa, a British colony before 1961. We all wore uniforms to school, and going to the store to be fitted for high school was practically a rite of passage. Honestly, wearing uniforms was much easier than having to decide every school day how to dazzle the boys without looking like I was even trying. So here I was in the famous McCulloch and Bothwell getting kitted out for my future. In front of me was a girl about my age. She had long, blonde, dead straight hair, blue eyes, a perky little nose, and even perkier breasts, big, perky breasts. I heard her mother call her Lisa and ask for the Hyde Park high blazer in her size. My ears pricked up. That was my high school. This girl was going to be in my year, and so I took her in, every inch of her, right? I was so fucked. Lisa ruined the next 2 months for me. All I could think about was being surrounded at high school by throngs of blonde-haired, perky-nosed, bra-wearing, boob-bobbing Lisas. The start of high school finally rolled around. It didn't turn out quite as badly as I'd imagined. But in week 3, the math teacher asked me to stand up and deliver my answer to a problem, which I did. The boys in front of me kept telling me to face the class when I speak. I was facing the class, I told them. Oh, they laughed. We couldn't tell. Oh. I did begin to realize the futility of all the wishing I'd been doing. There wasn't even so much as a whisper of a bump anywhere near my chest, and it was plain for everyone to see. What wasn't quite as obvious, though, coming in second on the podium of having arrived as a young woman, was getting your period. Girls with my physique at the time, pretty much the same as an 8-year-old boy's, would be unlikely to have their period already. Unlikely, but not impossible. And that's when it all started. The compulsive panty checking. Wishing for that tummy ache that was the harbinger of what was coming. Wishing for that wet patch, no matter how tiny, something that indicated I was with my people, part of the same species, with entry into all things big and important. 2 very long years passed, and my maturing body now showed the suggestion of 2 breasts. I wore what was known back then as training bras, but continued to have unstained panties. Puberty still seemed a long way off, and waiting for it had cost me a lot of hope and a fair amount of confidence. Then one day, it just happened. A bunch of us were having a party at Mary Ann Xenopoulos' house. I remember we played Spin the Bottle. Her younger brother kissed me and went all googly-eyed, staring at me for the rest of the game. And then everyone decided to swim. I did not feel much like swimming, the boy I liked, Ross Creel, was spending all of his time with fucking Marianne that night. And I wasn't feeling particularly happy or much like pretending to have a great time in the pool. I didn't want to be a spoilsport though, so while all the girls were changing, I told Marianne I couldn't swim because I had my period. Oh, wow, okay. Word had clearly got around that I was a little late to the club. So there, I'd done it. Something I could have done 2 years before and had contemplated countless times. Just lie. But I had wanted my real period to start so badly. Now here I was, impersonating a young woman, led into the club under false pretenses. It was a hollow victory. When I was 15 and a half, my mom even took me to an OBGYN to see if we should be worried. Give it till she's 16, he said. If it hasn't happened by then, bring her back. 1 month before my 16th birthday, I was staying over at my dad's house, eating Cocoa Pops at the table before school, with a dull ache in my lower belly. I had stopped daring to hope, but I still checked my panties between every class, which had become something of a reflex I couldn't seem to shake. At the end of the school day, I checked once again, one last time. This time, there wasn't nothing. There was something. It happened. It finally happened. I fashioned a do-it-yourself pad out of about 3/4 of a roll of toilet paper, shoved it in my panties, and chose to walk home from school on my own that day. I checked in with my body as I walked. I still had a dull ache in my lower belly. I liked it. There was a definite wet feeling between my legs, maybe even a swelling, but there was something else too. There was a weightiness in my center. Not a heaviness and not uncomfortable, just new. A bit like an anchor that wasn't there before. When I got home that day, my stepsister Danny, a year younger than me with giant boobs, everybody basically had giant boobs except me, showed me how to set my pad in properly and how to insert a tampon if needed. It was a big day. We never had to schedule that follow-up appointment with the OBGYN. It turns out I wasn't so different. There wasn't something wrong with me after all. I'd just taken a different route, a much longer one, on my way to join the others. The thing is, I didn't realize how much belonging meant to me until I belonged. I just assumed I'd always be on the sidelines looking in. Ironically, the sanctuary of finally belonging and being just like the others gave me the courage to relax into being more myself and less like anybody else. Apart from fantasizing about getting a nose job for a good few years still, I developed something of a rush out of being quite singular, at times recklessly unedited, and preferably like nobody else. As it turns out, I'm still a tomboy at heart, still a little on the edge looking in, but I won't throw side saddle ever again, even though I still love boys, one in particular. And while my panties are a tad bigger, I check them for different things now. And a patch of wet is definitely not a good result. Thank you.